clicker. Oh, I'll take it. Thank you. Nice job.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you. If he can demo, I can demo. Maybe it's a dumb move. Okay, so my name is Nick Triantos, and I'm the CEO and one of the founders at ionGrid. And I'm going to do something probably a little bit dumb when you get up on stage, which is I'm going to sort of go off my script. Early on, I think it was Alan had said that we look at a dozen companies who all look basically exactly the same. And what I realized as I watched other people's presentations was, to many people out in the audience, you probably really can't tell much difference between one company and the next. So let me just talk a little bit about what we do. ionGrid is here to allow mobile employees to have secure access to corporate data through a great user experience. The really key thing I think that's been lacking from a lot of the solutions out there so far has been either it's not secure or it's a crummy experience for the end users. The problem we all know about, I'm not really going to spend too much time speaking about this, but the short of it is you've got tons of employees bringing devices like iPads into the workplace. Oh, excuse me, I rotated my screen here. Let me shut that off. You've got tons of employees bringing devices like iPads into the workplace, and one of the problems that occurs is that in an effort for them to try and be productive, they take all your corporate secrets and they put them in places like Dropbox. Or they have foisted upon them a solution like, for example, one of the remote desktop solutions, where now they're in a situation that I'm stuck running Windows, or I'm stuck in a situation where I can only be connected in order to get my work done. If you look at this really does talk through that there's a bunch of solutions that are very consumer-oriented around cloud storage. And obviously for banks and healthcare companies and other large enterprises, that's a bad word. You don't really want your data sitting out in Dropbox where, you know, though people may not be doing anything bad with it, when they terminate from the company, you completely lose control over the data. On the flip side, IT likes to push upon people remote desktop solutions, and although I think FrameHawk does a beautiful job with theirs, in the end you end up with some of the similar challenges. You're stuck basically running Windows. You know, if I want to zoom in on my slide, I just zoom in on my slide, and I can talk through it exactly the way that one would expect I should be able to with an iPad application. Mobile device management is a completely different solution. It solves a completely different set of problems. Art was speaking earlier about disabling the radio when people go international. It does solve some very good problems, nothing at all to do with securing mobile information on personally owned devices. What we do, we built a product called Nexus, and Nexus is a client-server solution, and I know that's sort of how 90s of me, but they gave me a pager too at the beginning of this thing. We install a server on-prem, and that server connects to all of your existing authentication infrastructure and your existing storage. Things like SharePoint servers, Windows file servers, other kinds of content management systems are coming in the very near term as well. We take that content, we encrypt it up, and then deliver it through a broker, which we can host, or the company can host in their DMZ. They can go 100% on-prem, and then we deliver it out to the device. Now, for the IT people in the audience, this may look a lot like a BlackBerry Enterprise server, and it's because that really is sort of very similar to what we do. What a BlackBerry Enterprise server does for email, we do for all of your other mobile documents and mobile data. Only Nexus solves these problems both for the end users and for IT. And that really is a challenge I think that most companies do have to address. You can't simply tell your employees, this is the most ultra lockdown solution, and we're going to want you to use this, because they're simply going to work around the system. And your employees, on the other hand, can't take, for example, pitch books, financial data, all kinds of regulated content from out of the healthcare industries, and put that in Dropbox, BoxNet, iCloud, Google Docs, etc., expecting that they're not going to get fired and that people potentially even could go to jail for things like that. We address a great end-user experience coupled with a great solution for IT, where IT can set policy that tells me exactly as an end user what I can and cannot do with this data once I have it. We price our product very similar to a lot of the cloud storage systems. It's basically a per user subscription. The base price is $15 per user per month, but we discount down fairly heavily excuse me, based on volume. And we also have worked with some customers who have needed different structures from us. We're fairly open to it. The truth is that my cost of goods is much lower than a lot of the cloud storage companies because it's your storage. It's your SharePoint servers. It's your Windows file shares. I don't have to pay for that storage. And as a result, I have a little bit more flexibility as far as higher price. We've been talking to companies across a whole range of different markets. These are a mix of companies who are actually paying customers with us today, pilot customers, and companies with whom we've had really good initial conversations. So we feel pretty good that we're we're able to address quite a few different markets. Our personal focus, our corporate focus right now has been around financial services because I think many of the banks and other financial institutions are very forward-looking with respect to mobility. They don't want to get caught with their pants down. And in healthcare as well. There's been quite a few companies who have now realized that, for example, I can enable my tens of thousands of salespeople to actually have the correct version of a presentation when they go out in front of a doctor. And the instant that marketing fixes that presentation and saves it to SharePoint, all of my sales force gets the correct updated version. And if I want, as the IT department, I can say, my salespeople are allowed to take that with me offline and get the exact same end user experience so that, for example, if I'm a sales rep going into a hospital and I need to shut off my radio, I can do so and still be able to present. Our team is a bunch of people out of NVIDIA originally. We've also built, so we have a lot of experience around computer graphics, mobile enterprise software, and we've built a lot of security software for the intelligence and defense communities. And what we're looking for here today is basically more customers, partners to work on distribution with us, and of course investors. I think every startup should always be looking for investors. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Nick. Good job. Right on time. I guess before we go to the judges, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Google's been doing a lot in order to make their applications more palatable to the enterprise. Of course, they have Google Apps, which includes a bunch of services within email,
Right.
documents, spreadsheets, and so on. And they keep adding things to that portfolio. And as you know, just in the last couple of days, Google Drive was launched.
Yep.
And to the extent that Google Drive would be available, and it is, because
Yep.
I got I'm a administrator of my own family Google Apps domain.
Right.
I got notified that here's a service you can roll out to your users. So I know the uptake on Google Apps has been slow, but it's still, it is happening, and,
Yes.
and more companies are getting into it. So how does something like that overlap or impact?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, for those who have not yet seen much about Google Drive, there's a bunch of news about it in the Twitter sphere and in the tech magazines. Any documents that you put in Google Drive are owned by Google forever. They had quite a bit of bad publicity around that. It's very different than most of the other cloud storage companies. You know, obviously for someone at Amazon.
What do you mean by that? They're owned by Google forever?
They can, if you.
Sorry?
That's correct. Their terms of service say that anything you give to them, they get to keep. So my Coca-Cola presentation, if I work for Alan, or my presentation on new drugs for diabetes, are now owned by Google. And when the FDA comes after me and says, that presentation is no good anymore, I don't actually have control anymore, technically, because Google owns my information. Huge problem there, I think. The other problem is, you know, I don't know how much people in the audience have tried using Google Apps. I think the word processor is sort of barely tolerable. I think the rest of their productivity suite probably leaves something to be desired. One of the things about our system is we get the documents to look pixel perfect. This is exactly what it looks like when I'm running it on a Mac or a PC running Microsoft PowerPoint. And we do that across every single document. So.
Okay, guys?
What kind of digital assets do you support as far as visual rendering?
Sure. So we support basically all the Microsoft Office formats since Office 97. We support PDFs, text files, image files, and we're adding video.
What are your thoughts on like the Creative Suite family of things? That's kind of like core app for us.
We are actually considering something like that. There's one of the nice things about those applications is that they are much easier to get to be rendered correctly. And basically, as soon as the customer tells us that they want it, we go do it. So I already gave you one of my cards, I think, earlier, Art, but you know, by all means, feel free to hit me up.
It's my favorite question when dealing with iOS is always about the jailbreak scenario.
Of course.
So how do you deal with jailbreak and protection there?
Sure. So first of all, we don't store any keys on the device, period. If you jailbreak the device and you breach the keychain of iOS, you do not get access to any of our keys. Any offline access to this content still requires you to authenticate using your original AD credentials. Those credentials are not stored on the device, and you do not need to be online to do that. We have some patents around what the way we're trying to solve that problem. Happy to speak about it with anybody offline. We're going to have a booth in the back corner. By all means, feel free to come by. But we were at the RSA conference about 2 months ago. We got hammered by all kinds of security weenies, and most of them came back to me afterwards and gave me a card and said this was a really great talk. So, other questions?
Maybe you can talk a little bit about performance. So if you're going to be in the center as, quote, your BlackBerry server.
Sure.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about performance.
Yeah, of course. So the whole system's been built to be very, very scalable. We have some customers who start out by installing one package of our software on top of one VM. One of the large financial institutions who we're working with now is in the midst of deploying 20 servers, I believe. And they're doing it, they have data centers spread across a couple of continents. They are servicing a few 100,000 employees, multiple petabytes of storage. We believe that we can scale up to that quite comfortably. The reality is, yes, we've got several petabytes of storage. Me on my iPad, I don't really need to get to all N petabytes of data. I need to get to my sales presentations, my SLA agreements, you know, my demo videos and so forth. It's a fairly small subset.
Do you have data centers in international for the connections to bounce through?
Sure. Currently, we have data centers only in the US. But again, we have 100% on-prem solutions. So for some of our larger customers, we'll just give you all the bits and you can host the equivalent of what RIM would put in their BES, in their data center, in their NOC. You can go and host that yourself if you choose to.
Okay, great.
What does it take for an end user to actually get it up and running?
Sure. So if you wanted to try out our app, you download the app in the App Store. It's free. You would then be able to go and download a free version of our server application. It's called Nexus Connect. Go to our website, you register, you can download, you can go to our website, register and download this app. It installs in about 5 minutes, and you can point it at My Documents, or you can point it at a single SharePoint site, for example, and within about 5 minutes you'd be up and running. For an enterprise customer who wanted to actually tie into AD and so forth, it's more like probably typically anywhere between 30 minutes and 2 hours.
Yesterday, you and I chatted a little bit about Box and kind of, are you competing directly against it? Again, one of the things we like about technologies like Box is the APIs that they're building, and the APIs being very, very easy to use such that we can integrate other applications that need that capability with Box. And so, is it the intent to replace it, or are there opportunities for you guys to work with them?
Sure. So I'm not going to get into too much gore here. There's too many people here for this. But the short of it is, part of our architecture is something we call storage engines. We can build storage engines to talk to Box, Dropbox, Google Docs, your FileNet servers, your Documentum servers, pretty much anything. The whole system has been built to be very, very modular. Excuse me. And what we do with most customers is none of them have exactly the need for what we had already built. So we always find ourselves having to sort of build little tweaked modules along the way, and we're very happy to do that, and it generally takes us a very short period of time. We've built the whole system so it has enough robust tools underneath it that we can do these very, very quickly.
Of course, when you use the API to go to Google Docs, the developer is presented with a pop-up that says, warning, Google's going to own all of the information.
Yeah, well, actually, but the nice thing about it, actually, this is an interesting thing one customer has mentioned to me, is that they have data in Google Docs. They actually want us to at least provide the presentation layer to them because I can actually make those PowerPoints look correct. If you've converted them into Google native presentations, you're sort of hosed.
Yeah,
but,
that's kind of what I was thinking,
yeah.
is making them presentable.
I got a minute 20. I could do some magic tricks.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't mention earlier, I can perhaps mention because I think it is relevant, is that not all applications are simply PowerPoints and Excel files. One of the other things that we do, since we have connectivity into the company already, when you're online at least, is we built a browser into our system as well. So, for example, I can now get to intranet web content. This is, in this case, the administration dashboard used to set up one of our servers. But I can get to anything that's behind the company's firewall if IT lets me do that. So the combination of getting to your content and making that look perfect, coupled with getting to web applications that also behave very, very nicely on this device, means that now I can do the presentation when it's time for me to go do close the deal and take down the request from the customer. I can do that right into a web form, and everything stays completely on-prem.
So today you're supporting iOS.
Correct.
What's the future plans for?
So we actually started on Android, and we're happy to go and support multiple platforms. What we're probably going to do is build the next gen of our client to be very portable, but the truth is none of our enterprise customers have yet told me that they actually care. They want to know the checkbox is there, but beyond that, they don't really have any immediate plans.
Okay, we're out of time. Nick,
Thank you
thanks
very much.
Good job. All right, now it's your turn to get involved, okay? We're going to take a few